Good evening. This is Don Dyke here at the University of Nevada, Reno on the quad in front of the, or just behind the famed Mackey statue on in the central part of campus, or at least the south part of campus. I chose this location on a smoky night in Reno, Nevada, as ironic as it is, the sculptor who created that statue, who also created the famed facade on Mount Rushmore in South Dakota, also created that location, and also the site of one of the more prominent speeches of President Donald Trump's tenure at the 4th of July speech in North Dakota several months ago. And I figured this is an appropriate setting, a appropriate backdrop, and it was quiet enough I would set the tone for tonight's speech. So tonight's night 4 of the Republican National Committee convention, and happened to be the conclusion of the Republican National Convention speech, culminating with incumbent Republican President Donald J. Trump accepting his party's nomination on the South Lawn of the White House, which is rather unprecedented for a political party leader to accept a political speech at the White House, namely government property, as that has been such the kind of the point of contention with many public commentators and many in the public on whether that was an appropriate place to do it, but the circumstances being what they were, namely with the coronavirus conditions and the fact that social distancing limited what options were available to the Republican National Committee, as well as political organizations, that's the venue they opted on. I don't have an exact number of how many people showed up tonight on the South Lawn, but that's the guesstimate at the hour is in the hundreds who were. I'm going to let the viewers decide what this social distancing appeared to be enforced, but there appeared to be people wearing masks, but not widely. But nevertheless, that was the setup on the South Lawn tonight. The president gave an hour and 10-minute speech tonight, formally accepting the nomination early on in the speech. He was introduced early on in tonight's program by his daughter Ivanka Trump, who introduced him at the 2016 convention in Cleveland. Prior to tonight's speech, and I'll kind of start with that. I'm kind of jumping around today because today's kind of a pretty varied news day on a range of fronts. If you haven't told what's going on throughout the country and politically, earlier in the speech at the convention program tonight. Tonight's program, again, was the culmination of the whole event. Focus had U.S. Senator Tom Cotton, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, a bit of a rebuttal to maybe former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg speaking last week at the convention, attacking Joe Biden and making the case for Donald Trump, but and also kind of playing his famous role as the law and order mayor of New York City, which is what he was known as prior to being a close advisor to President Trump, as well as HUD Secretary and former Republican 2016 Republican rival Ben Carson was featured tonight. Also, UFC President Dana White and other known famed conservative warriors and famed conservative political icons were featured in tonight's speech tonight. So let's see here. Sorry, the lights are rather bright, so I'm trying to read my notes here in this bright light, which I didn't take into consideration. Oh yes, so I'm just going to focus on speech a little. Prior to the program, follow the Democratic nominee, vice presidential nominee, U.S. Senator Kamala Harris of California, gave a 20-minute speech today, which was unique because normally you don't have the opposition kind of rebutting the other party during convention time, but that's what happened today. Came out and more or less to decry the president's response to the current social unrest situation throughout the country, the events in Kenosha, offering their support to the family of these young man who was shot in Kenosha 7 times, and also her rebuke to the young man who, I'm not going to say his name, I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to give notoriety to that name at this time, to the young man who took an AR-15 and shot 2 protesters in Kenosha the following day after. And that proved to be an interesting contrast to today's events because it got the political media and the news media speaking for a little bit and may have taken a bit of the shine from tonight's convention. But again, that's kind of been a bit of the upheaval. I've been trying to decipher what that means in this whole grand scheme of things, but that did happen tonight. So the president gives the speech and on the White House lawn, kind of coming back to that, and accepts the party nomination. Right around 7:28 is my mark of when he accepted the nomination tonight, Pacific Standard Time, about 10:28 Eastern Standard Time. Starts in a speech attacking former Vice President Biden. I am blind, okay. Starts a speech attacking President Biden, talks about how, you can tell he's laying out a general election campaign, a tagline that Vice President Biden is close to China, or China's preferential candidate. It's been soft on China, again, noticing a theme that's been ongoing throughout the week. Talked about his achievements in trying to get NATO members and paying more. Talked about his famous quote and his campaign pledge as well. Promises made, promises kept to address key issues or key constituencies or populations, cultural conservatives, judges, tax policies, trade policy, jobs, economic performance. Those are the things he was talking about primarily. USMCA, abolishing NAFTA. Then he talked about the government response to COVID, which was a bit of a response and a rebuttal to the vice presidential candidate Harris's response on the administration's lack of response and said the word ineptitude and incompetence several times during her speech. He approached it and said, look at our competence and how well we approached the crisis and ramping up for ventilators, getting the government ready to deal with things, rapid testing, and talked about the Sunday announcement that he made about convalescent treatment, which I'm going to leave that one alone because that's still a question of whether or not its efficacy or capacity or its ability is still much up for debate this time, but it is a therapy that's employed. I'm not going to kind of go into that because I'm not a medical doctor nor a scientist on that, so I'm just going to leave that alone. But that was a featured point in the president's speech tonight. Again, then went back in the speech, went back to attacking the president, former vice president, that he would be a Trojan horse for the left. Was kind of speaking to the base, so to speak, saying electing Joe Biden would be essentially letting this Trojan horse walk in the door and would be allowing the AOCs, the Bernie Sanders wing of the party to go on in with their political ideas and policies like the quote-unquote Green New Deal, defunding police, et cetera, kind of trying to play the base, but also to any potential soft Trump voters who may be wavering to consider swinging on over and presenting arguments or concerns that they may have if they're thinking about voting for Biden. Then they actually started talking about specific policy ideas on energy exploration and that that wing of the party would also shut down and try to stop fracking in those states, which would affect, and he actually went down the line and started picking out states, notably the following states: Pennsylvania, fracking, where fracking goes on; Ohio, where fracking goes on; Texas, big oil state, energy state; Colorado, oil energy state as well; and New Mexico, that if given the chance, the advances that the Trump administration has made to allow fracking to have more liberties to drill and operate would be clamped down by that wing of the party or by a potential Biden administration. And they also made a quintessential quote, which I thought was in reference to the Vice President Biden's opening line as as a reference to being a shining light or an ally of the light. He responded that the Democrats at this point in time, namely in California, the power outages in reference to the wildfires and whatnot, can't keep the lights on. That was his response to that line regarding energy policy and their ability to manage the economy and government, which kind of got a few applause lines for the audience, for the circumstance he was at. I had to look. I was afraid that I was fucking heading my way. Then he talked about, in a second term, potentially what he would do on tax policy again in trying to address dealing with more tax cuts. And that he, quote, talked about, "I will cut these substantially," which may be an allusion to the payroll tax proposal he's talking about, or potentially another round of tax cuts in a second term. Then he kind of made an allusion to social conservatives on making a defiant stick claim on the cultural issues or on the culture of life concept, where he claimed and wanted to be wanted the Republican Party to be a party of life, and that there was a, quote, right to life from not just the womb but throughout life. That way, in a way, kind of trying to appeal to a very important constituency of the Republican coalition, a cultural conservative or religious conservative wing. So that was an interesting appeal there. That was kind of the big points I can tell from the 70-minute plus speech that the president gave tonight on the South Lawn of the White House, featuring, when it finally concluded, an operatic singing. I don't know who the singer was because I don't have the program for that. But that singer was on the second floor, I think the third floor balcony, singing with backup, and with the backdrop of fireworks in the background, with the first family, Donald Sr., Donald Jr., Ivanka, and wife's and his son, and with the first lady and his son, and both Eric and Jr. with alongside, standing as a family on the deck, on the dais, watching the fireworks, and with the music in the background. Kind of a made-for-TV moment, you could say. Made-for primetime TV moment, you could say. And thus ended tonight's speech tonight, at least in Washington. And I'll leave it to you to decide what you thought of it. As if you have any thoughts or responses, feel free to respond. I'd be happy to hear what you think. Now, I wanted to do something I don't normally do, kind of bring this home to Nevada, because quickly after the speech ended, I'm sorry if I'm fiddling about, I don't normally read press releases verbatim, but this is kind of the only local piece I could get tonight. I got a rapid response back from the Nevada Democratic Party in response to the president's speech tonight. And I'm going to allude a little bit, sweep back to the president's program tonight, as one of the featured issues of tonight's speech, or featured faces before the kind of start off the speech, was in the beginning of the program. There was an allusion to how Democrats were managing cities, and Democrats were managing certain key issues that are close to their constituency bases on social policy and housing policy. And there was kind of a direct attack to New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio and how he's managed housing in that community. And there was quite heavy line of suggestion of people of African American origin. And that was kind of the question of why there have been a lot of African American faces in this convention, or people of color in this convention, who aren't very well known in African American communities. And I think this is kind of where this is coming from a tad bit, because there was a bit of an undertone in, or at least a way of kind of patting the faces up there, but not exactly talking about issues in detail, as well as the lack of kind of the convention addressing the current issues going on presently outside of the convention, which, to put things in perspective right now, there are in Minneapolis right now, the governor and the mayor have declared a state of emergency again for the second night with the curfew in tow. Kenosha, same situation. The Wisconsin National Guard has been deployed again, along with 3 other state supports, which will all ride till tomorrow. There's 2 hurricanes, or at least there were 2 hurricanes that have come on shore throughout the country. Wildfires in California. So, and the coronavirus also raging. So there's a degree of a lot of chaos going on outside. But nevertheless, this is kind of where I think the Nevada Democratic Party issued the statement with that in mind. So I'm going to read it just to kind of bring some perspective of the fact we're still in election year and parties are still fighting for votes and people's attention. The press release was titled, and it came out right at the end of the speech tonight. Rapid response for you guys. And I'm going to try to read this in the bright light as best as I can. So I'm going to, if I turn away, I apologize. It's not because I don't want to see you, it's because I'm actually trying to read this. Tonight, Trump embraced racism is how this press release was quoted for the Nevada Democratic Party. And the nuts and bolts of it came, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to have this a little bit better. Titled, okay, I'm going to have to admit, okay, so this is, sorry. The Nevada Democratic Party Chair, William McCurdy, had this statement issue. Ignorance is the theme of this Republican convention. The struggle of families to pay rent, pay groceries, or get medical treatment did not get talked about or did not occur. The 180,000 American families mourning the loss of a loved one don't exist. The number of innocent black Americans and the assassination of fellow Americans who stand up and protest injustice and systemic racism are irrelevant. Trump and allies have used this convention to make write a narrative about Donald Trump because they don't care about what happens to Americans. I'm not blocking that. They are removed from reality, segregated behind walls, and steel bars of their own making to hide from America. But Donald Trump is happening to America. They're hiding from America. I'm going to post this so we're all on the same page, because I'm reading this as a screenshot. It was only a month ago that, not far from where he addressed that nation, tonight Donald Trump gasped, reference Lafayette Square gassing here, peaceful protesters, he said he would, and so he could hold a Bible upside down, presumably because it is better for Trump, sorry, didn't mean to say that, misquote, for Trump to pretend he's a Christian than to actually be an American president. Wow, that's a little rough. The only way America gets better heal the wounds of this presidency and faces the reality of centuries of systemic racism and oppression to become the more perfect union we have been so strive to be. It is Donald Trump. It is if Donald Trump is removed from the presidency. End quote from the Nevada Democratic Party. Sorry, guys. I actually could have read that with this. What do you know? So that was the rapid response quote from the Nevada Democratic Party on tonight's speech. I want to post that just so you can understand. Hey, we're still in election year, and people are still arguing. So, that being said, those are kind of the observations I have for you tonight from tonight's convention. So we're done. The conventions are done. You'll likely see the classic tightening between polls, between the parties, between the incumbent Republicans and Democrats, which right now Democrats and Republicans who right now are alleged to have a lead nationwide, range of, depending upon your polling data, from anywhere from like 5 to around 10 points right now. Going into the weekend before Labor Day weekend, which effectively in about next weekend, we'll step on the ledge, is to kick off effectively election season in earnest. Other than that, local news, I kind I think I'm going to leave that one for this hour because I'm going to focus on the national stuff. As my colleagues at This Is Reno have already made some reports this afternoon about some public events here in the public square, namely over at the school board, and a recent resignation. And also, the air quality issue being an issue, and also today, where I stand on the campus of the University of Nevada, Reno, as well as also at UNLV, there was an announcement that there was a COVID test, someone had tested positive for COVID that had been on the campus within the last week or so. Again, no details on that, but that's kind of all I have for you tonight on the last night of the Republican National Convention. So, I hope that I've tried to inform you to the best of my ability, or at least try to document this moment in time, as we are in a very fraught moment in American history, with so much change, so much chaos, so much concern, so much uncertainty, and so much going on. I hope I've been able to give you a little bit more clear or consistent, or at least a quick response at times, if I could be, about this thing called these things called party conventions and events. As I've kind of been traveling up and down the I-80 corridor, 395, all over Northern Nevada to tell you a story, tell you what's going on. So, I thank you for indulging my political geekiness, my curiosity, and this 2020 election cycle as it's getting started. It's on, apparently. Parties have their nominees. The election is on. And funny, as I look back on this quad back about nearly 12 years ago, a certain president also came to this place once as well to speak. And I wonder, thinking, who will visit us next in the next couple of weeks and months, as we obviously are considered a swing state. Spending has been going there. The Democratic nominee in Joe Biden has been spending money here in Nevada, also in Arizona, also in Colorado, and we're yet to see some big some advertising dollars in the near future from the Republicans, at least the presidential campaign. My understanding is that's coming soon, but. I openly will tell you, as I've learned from 2016, as I've learned that Donald Trump has proven himself an capable campaigner no matter where he's at in the polls, don't count and set this thing out already. Donald Trump was literally at this point, if not in a worse position polling-wise in 2016. He was outspent in 2016, had a better and was dealing with better organized opposition, and still won. Simply because, well, for a lot of reasons actually, but I'm not gonna try to handicap and play anyway quarterbacking. I leave that to historians on that one. I'm just here to observe. But I do want to just say to you, stay tuned, keep your eyes peeled, and above all, vote. Don't care who, just vote. But inform yourself on what's going on beforehand. So, anyhow, stay tuned. I thank you for your time. Thanks for watching the 2020 Democratic and 2020 Republican Convention reports, as well as Democratic Convention reports. Good night. Take care.